All right, welcome to the Gaming Lounge podcast, episode 27. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
You know, Seb, I love spiritual successors. Sometimes I think this podcast itself is a spiritual successor to Disco Elysium. Apparently, everything's a spiritual successor to Disco Elysium now. But yeah, I still have this fucking cough. It's been about a month and a week now, and I'm really sick of it. But I'm hoping it's going away because, like, very slowly, it's becoming more and more sporadic every week. But it's October. I'm very excited. So many games have come out that I am flooded with games. And yeah, we're going to talk about Silent Hill 2, obviously, like in the thumbnail. I'm super excited about that. And you've been playing Sparking Zero. Plus, we got some news. So fun, besides the cough.
All right, so let's start with some news. First is about the Splinter Cell Remake. So apparently it's still happening. There was a rumor that it was canceled and they weren't working on it anymore, but apparently it's still being worked on. So what it says is that it's codenamed North, and it's being built on the Snowdrop engine, and it's being led by Ubisoft Toronto, and it's focusing on modernizing the visuals and the gameplay while staying true to its linear roots. So it's staying linear, of course. So if you've never played a Splinter Cell game before, the games they're level based. You complete the objective, you assassinate whoever, or you complete a stealth mission. It's not like an open world game or anything like that. And then it says the development is progressing and the release date is expected to be around 2026. And Ubisoft hasn't revealed that much, and the project remains active, and the improvements are aimed at matching the expectations of the players and preserving the essence of their original games, which people have been clamoring for years now. Dory, how do you feel about this news?
I'm excited. I played Splinter Cell when I was a kid. I can't say I was any good at it. I probably wasn't. I wasn't good at a lot of stealth games. But I remember having a lot of fun with it. I remember it did a lot of really cool things with darkness and light. And for me, that was really exciting at the time. Obviously, as a kid and being in the 2000s, that just wasn't something a lot of developers were really doing. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with Splinter Cell back when I was younger. I'd love for it to come back, and I'd love to play it. I'm not as hot on stealth games as I used to, but I mean, like, if it, even touches like kind of the aura that Hitman has these days. For me, I love Hitman. Like, all three of them are incredible games. The newer ones by IO, but the old ones I love too. Like Blood Money. I would love for that. I would love for Splinter Cell to come back and have a kind of, reawakening as a series. I don't care if it's remakes or remasters. Maybe do something to test the waters and then do something fresh and original afterwards.
Yeah, I've been asking for a remake for a long time. This is one of those franchises where Ubisoft is just thrown in the trash for years now. The only thing we've seen of Sam Fisher has been like cameos in other games. So it's been disappointing. It's one of the best franchises they own. And it's no shock that Ubisoft's struggling right now because they don't treat their IPs very well, I think. And Splinter Cell is a perfect example of that, where they have an awesome IP and they just don't utilize it correctly. Like, I can understand that some of their sequels were not as good and people maybe got sick of the games after a while, but it doesn't mean you just totally freeze your IP and never use it again. So
yeah, it's like that's a cry for going back to the drawing board, not completely crumpling it up and throwing it away. I feel like a lot of studios unfortunately do that.
Yes, they did the smart thing with Assassin's Creed where they stopped making it annual and they made it they focused more on a different open world kind of setting. Now,
that one they had to. I mean that's their golden egg right there. They had to, like, just do tweaks instead of giving up on Assassin's Creed. Splinter Cell, I mean, it was really popular for a time, but as you said, the sequels started grating on people. They weren't as good as some of the earlier games. Started moving away from what made the series so unique and distinct and important in a way.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is focused on Halo news, which is big news, in fact. So 343 Industries is now rebranded itself into Halo Studios, which is I guess it's not a huge surprise because that's like the main thing they work on. And
Right.
But the other big shift in the news was that they shifted to Unreal Engine 5 instead of their own. So they switched to Unreal 5. So they said that they claim that's easier for them to do that because A, that's like it's one of the most popular engines to use right now, and B, it makes it easier for them to make the game faster and allow them to actually release it on different platforms, including PlayStation. So this is kind of big news for PlayStation. I think people are also noticed that they're making. I think it was like I don't remember what website it was on, but they're saying like people are looking to hiring, and they listed PlayStation as like on the website about they're working on a Halo for PlayStation, which lines up with the rumors like earlier this year when like Xbox was putting all their games in PlayStation that like they're working on Halo to put it on there, which will all be obviously be monumental. But in terms of this, it says that Unreal Engine will allow them more flexibility and wide industry use, and it's going to allow them to have faster game development. It's going to allow them to hire talent faster, and it's going to be allowed to have frequent content updates way more than they have been, which is a big criticism of the new Halo game. And it also reflects a broader transformation in their culture and their workflow. So it will allow them to, create. It says it will create more expanded, richer worlds in life, and allow and like and I mentioned, it could be coming to PlayStation because it makes it easier for them to create the game for another platform. I'm not a big Halo fan as much anymore. I don't play Infinite at all. I played Infinite when it came out. I beat this campaign. I played the multiplayer for like a week or whatever, and then I kind of got tired of it. I'm just not. Halo used to be one of my favorite franchises, but it's just not what it was for me anymore. But I think in general I don't play multiplayer as much anymore anyway. So there's that. So I'm more interested in a campaign. Overall, this is great news, I think, for Halo. Because Halo is not going anywhere. It's the mascot of Microsoft, and there's no reason to throw Halo away. Master Chief is too iconic, and so it's not a surprise they're gonna make a new Halo game at some point. So, Dory, how do you feel about this news?
Yeah, at first I was pretty indifferent. I looked at some of the trailer, and then I watched about a minute and a half of it, and I got the gist of what they were saying. I was looking at the comments, and I don't know, like I just don't have a lot of positivity towards this. I guess I'm also influenced by the comicbook.com article that I read recently. That was like this is kind of like their fourth try on going to enter in, like they're going to somehow usher in Halo for a new era. Before they were using the Slip Space engine, which 343 spent a lot of money on for Halo Infinite. And they were calling that the future of the franchise, but now they're switching to Unreal, which, I mean, might be a good move. I mean, Unreal has a lot more developers. It has a lot more mainstream appeal. They can get people a lot faster and stuff like that. Unreal is obviously very well tested. A lot of people like it. So certainly this could help Halo. But like you, I mean, I haven't played Halo in years. I think the last time I played Halo was at a friend's house in the 2010s. I think it was Halo ODST. Like, I haven't played Halo. I mean, I did play a little bit of Halo Infinite in terms of the multiplayer. I didn't even touch the campaign. I don't really care about the story. But like, yeah, I can't say that the franchise moves me like it used to as a kid. Don't get me wrong. Halo 1, 2, and 3, all-timers, bangers. The Master Chief Collection, I played a little bit of it. Seemed like another banger. But I don't really care. I think naming themselves Halo Studios is at least honest, because that's pretty much what they're there for. But at some point, I really feel like people just want Bungie back. I feel like 343 has done their best with 4, 5, and 6, or 4, 5, and Infinite. And I'm not going to pretend like Infinite doesn't have anything going for it, right? I played a little bit of the multiplayer. I liked what I experienced, but at the time I didn't have a Xbox controller to connect to my PC, so it was a miserable experience for me trying to play an FPS on a keyboard and mouse when I don't even have a mouse. I had a trackpad, so I can't really fairly rate that experience, but it wasn't good. But I mean, I see cool clips of Halo Infinite all the time on highlight reel, and I love the series. I just don't think it loves me back at this point. I don't think Halo, whatever Halo is at this point, I care to keep up with. Um, for me, Halo ended at Halo 3. Maybe ODST if you want to be really nice. It's kind of like the Machinima series, Red versus Blue. Like for me, that show ended after season 10, or maybe even season 7. At a certain point, things just end, and you got to move on as a fan. If it's just not connecting with you the way it used to, I think that really sucks because I always preferred Halo over Call of Duty. Always liked the more sci-fi, otherworldly experience. Instead of like the more grounded, like machismo Call of Duty. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people who are playing Halo who are like that too, but yeah, I mean, the story about that was always very critical of the military and critical of what Master Chief went through. But anyway, all that's besides the point. I just don't really think this is going to do much for them in terms of like saving the franchise. Infinite had a great multiplayer, but it took a long time for it to get great. Like a lot of modern games, that's not really a 343 issue. That's like a gaming industry issue. But yeah, I'm not super impressed necessarily with this news. I hope it helps. I hope the next game kicks ass. But even if it does, I don't think I'll be playing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been in Halo since Halo 3, and 4 and 5 just weren't great to me. Well, if I remember correctly, 4 had a bad campaign but good multiplayer, and Halo 5 had good multiplayer but a bad campaign,
that sounds right,
or something like that. Or is it reverse? I don't know. It's been a while since I played it, but
something like that.
Either way, I have not been a big fan of 343's handling of Halo. They're just not on Bungie's level. Nope. And so even though this news is pretty good, and I like that they're streamlining it to make it better, because the biggest issue Infinite had was a lack of content for a long time. Until I think people are happy nowadays, from my understanding about it. But
yes, that's my understanding too. I think it took a while for the 343 to figure out how to do it, but once they did, I mean, the grappling hook was a literal game changer. I mean, it really changed how people did it. There's so many cool things you could do. Plus, the deflect is really cool too. You can deflect missiles and stuff like that back at your opponents. There's just lots of cool features that weren't in previous Halo games, and really makes the multiplayer stand out compared to other ones before it.
Yeah. So overall, good news for Halo. I'm excited to see where they go in the future with it. But I'm not super hyped for it. But it's definitely a cool story. But the big story for me is streamlining it for possibly being on PlayStation, because that would be monumental news. Being the mascot, that'd be like Mario on a different platform. But they're not going to give up on Halo, of course, because Halo is their mascot. So there's no reason to move on from Master Chief. So moving on to some big indie news. So Zaum, they broke into multiple studios, and they're making different games that are inspired by Disco Elysium, the spiritual successors. There was 3 of them, and now there's 4 of them, I guess.
There are 4 of them. Yep.
Yeah.
That includes we'll go over it, but yeah, there's 4 different studios trying to recapture.
The news changes every day. I feel like it was 2, and now it's 3, and now there's 4. But we'll start with the first one. So you got Longdew Games, and you got Dark Math Games. So we'll start with Longdew Games. This says there's a team made of 12 developers. It includes talent from Rockstar, Bungie, and Brave at Night. And their debut project is described as a psychogeographic RPG that explores the interactions between the conscious and subconscious, with players making choices that affect both internal and external environments. And they say it draws inspiration from classic RPGs like Planescape, and Torment, and Fallout. So, Dory, what do you know about this game?
Yeah, so God, there's a lot here. And I've been following this for the past couple days. So Longdew Games is kind of being vague about like what they're actually doing. They don't have a title or anything like that. There's a different studio that does, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, Longdew is not as much ZAUM as the other studios are. This is developers who are really influenced by ZAUM, with like, I think a couple or a few people that weren't like super high up, but were like important, obviously, to Disco Elysium. So yeah, besides that, I mean, like, there's not a lot known about that. It's like you said, it's kind of like an untitled psychogeography RPG. I mean, if that doesn't sound like Disco Elysium, I don't really know what does. Um, but yeah, there are some former devs here, but it's important to note that the original writer Robert Kurvitz and Alexander Rostov are not involved. And yeah, they're not. Let's see. So I'm looking at the Rock Paper Shotgun article. It says that it's set in a world conceived by the leads of the canceled sequel. That the studio is not ready to talk about specific names at the moment, beyond the people mentioned in the press release, but they are looking forward to sharing more about the game in the studio. They, and like I said, confirmed that Kurvitz and Rostov are not involved. They are involved in a different studio, which we will talk about later, that is also making a Disco Elysium spiritual successor. So let's see. They have stuff from Yes, Your Grace, Brave at Night alumni. You've already introduced the game. But yeah, I'm hopeful that one of these is going to be good. I'm not sure if this is the one that's going to be good. I have more faith in Dark Math, and I have a lot more faith in Summer Eternal. That's the one I really have my eye on.
All right, so let's talk about Dark Math games. So it says there are around 20 developers, half of whom worked on Disco Elysium, and they're working on a detective RPG titled Triple X Night Shift. This game aims to innovate traditional RPG mechanics, featuring a unique companion dynamic, offering a deep narrative choices that impact the storyline. So very similar to Disco Elysium. Dory, how do you feel about this one?
I feel about this one. We're kind of on an upward trajectory. Okay. Now, this has more developers. There are more people from ZAUM involved. They describe themselves as a true detective RPG or something like that. It's looking promising. I looked at the announcement trailer. I looked at the dialogue trailer, and it looks exactly like Disco Elysium. I mean, I'm going to be real with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it looks exactly like Disco Elysium. They've got the little sidebar of chatter on the right. They've got a little picture, and then they've got the gameplay. I mean, it's exactly Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
It's got like ASMR, fucking sultry whispering, like Rock, Paper, Shotgun says. Here you're going to play detective on holiday at an Antarctic ski resort in the year 2086, where something has gone wrong. And the developer says now you're stranded at the off-season resort. Unforgettable guests, wild parties, and mad secrets. So there's going to be similar crowd dialogue, heavy skills that influence your choices. You're going to have different parts of your personality interacting with each other. They say at one point that in the endless polar night, amidst the orgies of politics, power, and poetry, something gruesome lies waiting. So, I mean, I'm a little more confident about this, but I don't know how confident. It's an interesting name choice, like Rock, Paper, Shotgun says. I don't know why they're calling it XXX Night Shift, but I presume there's going to be some sex or something. I don't fucking know. But yeah, I'm more excited about this one, I guess is the short answer. The long answer is I'm not really sure how many ZAUM leads are involved here.
Yeah.
Just that they are involved. But yeah, it's kind of a confusing situation, but we'll go into the next one.
All right, so the third one, Summer Eternal, is working on another RPG as well, on their own RPG as well. And they said this focus on revolutionary gameplay. It says, like the other two studios, this team emphasizes innovative RPG mechanics and deep narrative experiences. Their goal is to create something that challenges conventions and offers players more choice and immersion. While details on their specific project are limited, the studio aims to continue the philosophical and psychological depth that characterize Disco Elysium. So very similar to the other two, I suppose. It's going to be very narrative dialogue heavy game. That's all we know of it, though, right? Or is there more information?
So there is some more stuff. Excuse me. So this one I'm the most excited about. This is really the politics of Disco Elysium. Now, side note, this whole fucking mess is because ZAUM broke up. There's a whole documentary about it, about ZAUM that you can find on YouTube, about the whole mess if you want to see it. But basically, like, Kurvitz was kind of an asshole, and there were some misconduct allegations against him. And he said that there was like some like creative stifling, art stifling or whatever going on from the people who are backing them. It became a whole fucking mess. There's no clear side like when I watched the documentary, I didn't get a clear like villain out of it. I think the documentary definitely wanted you to feel like one side was definitely worse than the other, but they both seem shitty to me in terms of the angel investors and Kurvitz in terms of his behavior, especially towards women. Nothing. I mean, I don't want to like make it sound like completely heinous. As far as I'm aware, it was just a lot of like dismissing and disparaging comments and stuff like that. As far as I remember and know, nothing more than that. But still, obviously horrible. But yeah, so that's why all this is happening. I mean, this reads right out of a fucking political cartoon. A company comes together, they make this like really powerful political work about communism, right? And then they break up because of capitalist infighting and external fighting from their angel investors. And then they form into 4 different fucking studios after, including the original ZAUM, which is still around, but I mean, they're not doing shit. It's like I don't know. You couldn't write this. This sounds like a fucking joke. Because like it reminds me of that bit from Monty Python and the Life of Brian where they're like splitters. Like it's the People's Front of Judea versus the Judean People's Front. Like that's literally what's happening here. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm really excited for Summer Eternal. I want to read their little manifesto that they have on their website, summereternal.com. On this day, the 11th of October, 2024, we announced Summer Eternal. We recognize we are writing the opening words of our story at a time of apocalyptic material conditions for game creators across the world. So right away, they're like, the industry's fucked. Like, we're going to talk about it. Our art has been dressed out into an industry, and this industry has been pilfered by corrupt executives, by the vulgar profiteering of corporate bodies moving like leviathans in the dark. There's that poetry again. Burning human fuel in their insatiable lust for money. It is not pencil pushers and money lenders who make games. It is the relentless passion of the workers that creates an art form capable of saying something true. As creators and game makers, we have too long been led away from the truth, away from the right to define ourselves as artists, and serve as the definitive art form of the future, one that has made us dream since we were children. And they go on and on like this about about how the industry treats them as cogs in the machine. I won't read the whole thing, but you can read it at summereternal.com. As you can tell, very politically charged. You know, they say you can't turn away once you've seen the light. There's a lot of stuff about you know the industry that they're living in. So they are crowdfunding their next one. They are also organizationally speaking. They are artistically driven, creative-led, worker and player-owned. So the way this is going to work, I'm not fucking kidding you. The reason I'm so excited about this is because politically, this is exciting to me. I'm very excited to see what will happen. Do I think it'll revolutionize the industry? No, not necessarily. Do I know that they will make a great game? No. I have no idea what's going to happen here, but this is fascinating to me on a political level. So basically what they're doing is it's worker-owned, right? That speaks for itself. That speaks for itself. But also, if you are able to crowdfund and give a certain amount of money, you are also able to own a percentage of the studio and make some small percent. I think it's like 5%, some kind of stock in the voting in terms of like what the studio does. Now, it's not obviously 5% is a small vote, but it is still a vote in what the company does on a business level. So again, I just find this fascinating on a political level. I don't know if this is good. This is either going to be tremendous or this is going to fall and fail really badly. There's really no in between. I'm excited to see what happens. This is probably the most excited I am in terms of the spiritual successors, because to me, Summer Eternal has like what Disco Elysium was. Like, it's not just about being a cop. It's not just about like the cutesy like UI. It's not about psychogeographical whatever, right? It's the politics. To me, that's the heart of Disco Elysium. I think the other stuff is cool and important, but it's not what made Disco Elysium to me. Without the politics, you don't get half the dialogue, right? And there's like a million words in there. So yeah, I mean, this is the one I'm most excited about.
Now, what's the fourth studio? Is that
So the fourth studio is Kurvitz, and I believe
it's
I
called?
forget his name.
Yeah, it's called.
Yes.
His company's called Red Info.
Yes, Red Info. Yes, so that's the one by Kurvitz and his companion. I don't know if I have any high expectations for this. Kurvitz might try some kind of spiritual successor sequel, which originally he wanted to do through ZAUM. Obviously there's a lot of bad shit about Kurvitz now because of the documentary. He was kind of shitty to his employees. Seems really like the kind of guy who just works better as on a small team or a small thing or by himself, really. He's very, in the documentary at least, it came off to me like he's very, he's very egotistical, I guess, is the nicest way I could put it. And he just comes off very badly in the documentary. And I'm not saying that's the full breadth of who he is. Obviously, the dude is wildly artistic and very passionate and incredibly well thought out in terms of his world crafting. But, it's hard to separate that from what happened with ZAUM. And obviously, it wasn't all in Kurvitz, but a lot of it was. So it's hard for me to get super excited about this one. I don't really know how to feel about this. And there's not a lot to go on for Red Info. We just know that the studio exists, what they are, who they're made out of, and what they're probably going to do. I don't think Kurvitz has said much about, if anything, about what they're going to do. So I don't have a lot of excitement for this, but I am curious about what Kurvitz is going to do, especially now that Disco Elysium isn't owned by him anymore, and it's owned by ZAUM.
And then you have Zaum still around, so that's 5 studios from one game, basically.
Oh, so it's Red Info, it's Summer Eternal. Yeah, you're right. So that's 5. So yeah, there's 5 fucking studios, different. I believe somebody said on Twitter, I don't know if this is true, that's how many worker internationals there are in the world. So that would be incredibly funny if that's true. I don't know, but I choose to believe it. Because the stakes are very low for that kind of joke. But yeah, this is a crazy situation. I really wanted to talk about it because I think it just highlights how absolutely bonkers the whole thing with Disco Elysium is. I don't know, like, I get why Kurvitz went to one studio, but why didn't all the rest of the ZAUM people come together into one studio like they're doing with Annapurna? I don't know.
They probably had their own ideas of what game they wanted,
right,
and they weren't happy with the idea of the other people, so they probably wanted to do their own.
Yeah. I mean, it's ZAUM on this side, Kurvitz on this side, and then in the middle you have 3 Splinter Cells. Splinter Cells, it all ties back. 3, that wasn't even intentional, but 3 Splinter Cells, just like fucking doing their own thing, their own interpretation of what they think Disco Elysium is. Again, of those 3, Summer Eternal is probably the one I'm most excited about. I think it captures the spirit of Disco Elysium, whereas it feels like Longdu is just saying we were really inspired by it, and then it feels like Dark Math is just kind of like, I mean, Full Scale just doing it. Like, they're just doing the disco thing.
Yeah.
So I think by the year 2030 we will have disco-like as a subgenre. We already kind of do. There's already been games that have kind of aped at what Disco Elysium did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is a mess. It's a fucking mess. Yeah. But I think it's an exciting mess, and I am interested to see what Dark Math and Summer Eternal do.
Yeah, spiritual successors are nothing new in the industry, but I don't want like 5 different Disco Elysiums. As much as I think Disco Elysium is one of the best games ever, I think like if you just make like 5 games that have the same amount of dialogue and the same kind of UI and everything, that's just like too much. So I hope that the games feel unique enough, at least. I mean, there's always a lot of narrative games on Steam and everything, but still, like you don't like just being a carbon copy of Disco Elysium is not the way either. But I guess overall, it's not the most surprising thing because when it comes off to me as somebody that doesn't really know these people at all, is that they're very artistic people with their own visions, and they rather tell their own story than collaborate with others and have to compromise and stuff. So I guess they just decided we're gonna do our own studio, which is very risky, of course.
Yeah,
So
I mean, especially now. I mean, if it wasn't risky before, it sure as fuck is now in the year of our Lord 2024.
yeah,
But I mean, I wish all the developers the best of success, of course. I'm excited on one level that we're getting this much disco, but like you, I'm like, I love Disco Elysium. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I can't even show it because it's on the back of my fucking laptop, right? But I just trust me, bro. I have like Harry doing the fucking like the little dialogue thought thing on his finger like a basketball on my laptop. I fucking love Disco Elysium a lot. And it's one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, I love playing as detectives. You know, I know, like, not to get like overly political, but I do think it's like one of the cooler things associated with police in that there are always like they're investigating murders, like objectively, like that's important business, right? That's important societal stuff that needs to happen. So like I'm always like more down for that than like for a game where like you're pretending like bust up, I don't know, drugs or something.
yeah,
But like but yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the True Detective RPG. I'm excited for the psycho geographical bullshit. I'm so excited for Summer Eternal on so many levels. I have no idea what's going to happen with that. Like I said, it's either going to be incredible or it's going to be disastrous. And there's no in between. And like, to be clear, I fully support them. I think worker-owned businesses are awesome, and there should be more of them. But I just don't know if it's going to work out in today's climate with the way the game industry is. Also, I apologize for how my voice is. But yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot of stuff here to look forward to. One of these games got to be fucking good, right? That's kind of my takeaway.
yeah.
Something's gonna work
Especially
on some level.
especially risky since this genre is quite niche, and I don't think a lot of people are clamoring for a narrative heavy dialogue game. I mean, how much did Disco Elysium sell? Do you know? Was it a huge seller?
I have no idea. I feel like eventually they made 1 million copies, but I don't know. I might just be confusing that with the word count.
Well, either way, it's a niche genre. I mean,
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Disco Elysium got a lot of stuff, but these are games that are trying to build off of Disco Elysium, and they are, you know, they are not Disco Elysium. Obviously, they're not done by the same studio. Let's see. So it has sold 2.6 million units on Steam, which is like for an indie game, that's huge, of course, right?
yeah.
But it made almost 7.4 million in its first 6 months, so that's pretty good.
What was the budget? That was the thing. It was successful. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, it was absolutely a smash success for an indie game. Yeah, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what I'll look it up, but I don't remember what the budget was. The budget wasn't. I don't know. I imagine it wasn't that
High, yeah.
large, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's gonna be hard to replicate the success of that game because that game was like it
was lightning in a bottle, and they're just trying to fucking capture it, and it's like
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
It was exactly that. It's like it's really really hard to nail all that writing again, the characters that well again, the setting that well again. Like it's really really hard to replicate it. So
yeah, I don't know. I can't find anything about the budget, but I imagine they certainly made their budget back and then some, and that led to a lot of issues down the line about curvets and everything else.
Yeah. So you ready to move on?
Yeah. We've talked about this enough.
All right. So I'm going to talk about 5 underrated horror games that I'd recommend people play. Dory couldn't come up with any because I have more of a history with horror games in my life.
Yeah.
Especially on the PS2 and the PS3 in the Xbox 360 era. So I just want to hit on 5 really quick ones. Everybody knows Resident Evil and Silent Hill and like those giant horror friend. Like they're just synonymous with horror. People, it's the first thing people think of is usually like Resident Evil. But these are the ones I feel like are really underrated that people don't talk about enough, and I would recommend them everybody play at some point. First one is Rule of Rose. Now, Rule of Rose was a survival horror game that came out in 2006 on the PS2. It's very hard to It's very hard to play nowadays, like physically. It's very expensive to buy nowadays. It's one of those rare games that cost like hundreds of dollars if you want to play it physically, or you can just emulate it, of course. It's set in 1930s England, and the story follows Jennifer, who is a young woman trapped in like a strange orphanage, and it's run by like sadistic group of children. So there's a bunch of crazy children that, and it's very dark. There's a lot of like disturbing like psychological trauma and like disturbing memories and stuff like that. There's a lot of children have like dark past. It's a very heavy game. Whether how people feel about like how it handles it or not is I guess it's debatable, but it really is a dark game. And so even though it has issues with like the gameplay and the and it got like mixed reviews at the time, it has now reached like cult status. So it's one of those well-known cult horror games that people mention on these kind of lists. And I recommend trying it at least once if you're into that genre. It is very much so survival horror with the certain camera angles and puzzle solving and things like that. It's like, if you like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, this is the kind of game you should check out. Another game on the same vein as that is Haunting Ground. This is said to be the spiritual successor of Clock Tower. I believe the devs have said that in the past. This is kind of like Clock Tower, like the third one. And so this was made by Capcom in 2005. So this is right during like Resident Evil 4 and Devil May Cry. They worked on another horror game called The Haunting Ground, and it follows Fiona Belli, who's like she's a young woman who awakens in a mysterious castle after a car accident, and she gets chased by various deranged inhabitants. So the whole game is you kind of get like chased like Outlast, although it's not first person, it's third person. It's the fixed camera angles, like a Resident Evil game, and they all have like a weird obsession with her. And she's aided by a dog, like and named Huey, and you form a bond with the dog. But if you mistreat the dog, you can and hurt him, like he will hurt you and during the gameplay. And it's like a different ending. Is a bad ending for messing with the dog as well. So obviously, who's gonna be mean to a dog? And then the gameplay is mostly like as a typical Resident Evil game as well. You would expect that kind of survival horror. I mean, where you explore this problems, there's puzzle solving, and then this game is not so much about combat; it's about evading the enemies. So you have to be careful with your stamina and things like that, and pace yourself and hide and things like that. And this also focuses on vulnerability, which is the main theme of the game, being a young girl getting chased by crazy people and deranged people in a castle. And it has psychological horror and survival. So if you like Silent Hill, this is the kind of game you should check out. Definitely. And also another game, I believe, only on PS2. Very hard to access physically. It's an expensive copy you have to buy again. Of course, you can emulate it, but if you want a physical copy, it will cost you. Both Haunting Ground and Rule of Rose should be remastered at this point, or they should port it on modern consoles and PC. I don't know why they don't, but I guess because it's so niche, these games are not, like I said, they're underrated, of course. So they're not like, those companies are not itching to release them, but I think they're worth a playthrough if you're into that kind of genre. All right, and then you have Clock Tower, which I mentioned Clock Tower before because Haunting Grounds is like spiritual successor to it. Clock Tower is getting a remaster, if it's not out already. It's on modern consoles now, and it will be. It's coming to PC. But Clock Tower is a 2D side scroller that came out in 1995. And you get chased by the Scissor Man. The guy has a giant pair of scissors, and it's basically you walk around a mansion like Resident Evil, and you go into different rooms, and he constantly chases you, and you explore the mansion, solve puzzles, and then you have to constantly evade the Scissor Man. he'll pop up randomly out of nowhere, like you just be in the bathroom and all of a sudden he's behind the curtains kind of thing. And you're always on edge. You never know where he's gonna be. And there's multiple endings as the other two games as well, where they're affected by your player choice. That survival horror has always been into different endings. Besides Resident Evil, or even Resident Evil has different endings too, somewhat. And then I don't know. I don't know how well it holds up to this day. It's very old looking. It's from the mid '90s, 1995. So obviously it's more 2D ish, with that like what do you call it? Live action view, the live action kind of focus. I'm trying to think of the word, but I just can't. It's not coming to me. FMV, I think it's FMV. That kind of stuff, where it's like a real actor is playing the character, and they kind of just put the actor in the game, and as like a player model. It's not 3D or anything. Anyway, so Clock Tower, a classic game. Scissorman is, I don't want to say he's an iconic horror villain in games, but I would say he's well known. Like he's known. Like if you play the horror games, if you're familiar with horror games, you probably have heard of him at some point. All right, and then the last two games are more modern. These two came out not too long ago, and they're accessible on modern consoles and PC. First one is Darkwood. Darkwood came out in 2017. That is a top-down survival horror game. It's a survival game, so Dory would not be into it because it's all about resources and things like that. It's not my kind of game either, but I think it's worth a mention because I don't ever see people mention Darkwood, so I just wanted to shout it out. So it's set in a mysterious, ever-changing forest, and you play as a nameless protagonist, and you have to scavenge supplies and craft items and avoid nightmarish creatures, and it combines exploration with resource management, and then you have psychological horror elements. And there is a permadeath in this game, so that increases your tension because if you screw up, you die. That's it. And as you delve deeper in the story, you encounter strange characters and you make choices that influence the narrative and the ending. Once again, survival horror always likes doing alternative endings, and it has a very unique art style and an atmosphere, and it's received critical acclaim. It's like Disco Elysium, I guess. I'm not even Disco Elysium, but it's kind of like that kind of thing where it's like it's not a monumental huge seller. It's not a game changing horror game. It's not selling 50 million copies, but it got critical acclaim. And it's one of the best horror games. I definitely recommend people play it. So you can argue maybe it's not underrated, but I never see people talk about it in the same way that people talk about like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. So I think it's underrated. And then finally, Signalis. Signalis came out in 2022. It blends retro aesthetics with modern gameplay. You play the role of Elster, who is a technician searching for her partner in a dystopian world filled with nightmarish creatures and psychological horror. It emphasizes exploration and resource management and puzzle solving. You see the trend here. Every single game, same thing, right? Puzzle solving, exploration, psychological horror. You see kind of games I like. And it draws inspirations from the classic Resident Evil and Silent Hill. And the narratives tackle identity and technology and existential dread, and it offers rich atmosphere and engaging storytelling. So overall, it's a fantastic game. I recommend everybody play this at least once if you're into horror. Put it in your wish list on Steam. If wait for a Halloween sale coming up, check it out then. But yeah, so those are 5 games that I would recommend everybody play. I'll maybe do another set of 5 next year in October because there's a lot of underrated horror games. Horror genre as a whole is somewhat niche, I would say. I don't like Resident Evil. Obviously, is monumental seller, has books and movies and TV shows and stuff like that. But Silent Hill, like, obviously is a big name, right? But it doesn't sell well. I believe Silent Hill 2, besides the remake, is the highest selling game in the franchise. It's like 1 million copies, or maybe 2. Resident Evil highest selling game is double digits, multiple times. So the horror genre in general is just niche. The horror genre is very scary for a lot of people. It's scarier than movies, arguably, because they can mess with you more. you have more control, but like there's ways they mess with you more than movies. It's more interactive. So the horror genre can be very overwhelming for people. So I understand that it's niche, but these are definitely 5 games you should play. Dory, do any of these games sound appealing to you, or have you heard of any of them before?
I have, well, so technically, because I looked up these lists before we started and realized I had never played any of them.
Okay.
But yes, even before then, I had heard of Haunting Ground. I knew about the dog mechanic too. Clock Tower, of course, I knew about. Come on, I'm not a rube. But I never played it. But yeah, Scissor Man's iconic, of course. Signalis I knew about because of Susie, Sphere Hunter. And I was considering playing that at one point, but didn't commit to it. So that's kind of my story here. Signalis is probably the only one I will play if I do. I'm very mixed on survival horror at times, which is why I haven't played some of these. I don't like resource management. It's my least favorite part of Resident Evil games. So that leaves me mixed on some of these some of these games, like the old retro games. I just straight up won't play. Yeah. But Signalis, I definitely consider. I think Darkwood sounds cool, but permadeath scares me to hell.
Yeah, you won't like that game because it's very resource management survival game, like full on survival game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's not my thing. I think some of the symptoms, some of the stuff in there, sounds interesting, but yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Rule of Rose is creepy for like the creepy little girls in the cutscenes and stuff like that.
See, Rule of Roses just makes me think of Duelist of Roses from the GameCube, the Yu-Gi-Oh game, where they try to fucking recreate historical war through the lens of Yu-Gi-Oh. I wish they did more games like that, because that'd be imagine they fucking do the Civil War in Yu-Gi-Oh. God, that'd be so bad.
That game generally has great themes and storytelling. Like, that's probably the most underrated game on this list, and I feel like I really recommend, if you're not going to play it, at least go find a great YouTuber that that talks about this game, like, to people that talk about survival horror games, and just like watching like an essay on it. Like, it's a really I've seen great videos on this game, so I really recommend people watch that. Also do that for Haunting Ground. There's some awesome video essays on those games. So yeah, so let's talk about what we're playing now. Now, Dory, you can start with your. We're talking about Silent Hill 2 last. So what's the other game that you're playing?
So I beat Visions of Mana. Is what I'm going to say here. I really had a great time with it. I enjoyed myself quite a bit, actually. There were some difficulty jumps, just like you said there would be, but it didn't ruin the game for me.
No, it didn't ruin the game for me either.
Yeah, no, it was a little annoying and kind of offsetting, where I was like, why are enemies suddenly like 10 levels higher than me?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I only died once, and the only time I did die was because I got petrified, which is like a really silly mechanic that basically if all your party gets petrified, it's not a status. It's not a status that you can
break out of.
Yeah, break out of. So that was kind of annoying. But yeah, I'll mostly talk about the end game. I won't go into spoilers or anything like that. Obviously, it's a new game. I stand by that the boss switchover is still lame. The original antagonist felt more grounded. I preferred him. The Fabio ripoff that we get instead is kind of, I mean, I guess this is a spoiler. This is a switch off, but I talked about it last time. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating. I do think the graphics held up throughout. I don't think I've ever taken so many screenshots. Actually, it's funny. I was facing the final boss, and I was trying to get him. Like in a really cool pose in the middle of a cutscene, but it like quickly switched to like his foot for a split second, and so I just took a screenshot of his foot. And I said to myself, "Wow, posting feet pics on main. That's crazy." But yeah, it was a little funny. But there's I have so many screenshots of this fucking game. It's so gorgeous. The vibes are immaculate. They are incredible. I love it so much. I did almost die to the final boss. I think 2 of my party members were dead or dying. I was about to die, and I think one of my party members was well on their way as well. And I was out of potions. I mean, I stupidly, this is my fault, not the game's fault. I knew like the final stuff was coming, but I just wanted to get the game over with.
They literally warn
That's
you.
one of my what?
They literally warn you.
They do warn you. They warn you that like the fight's coming up, but like I thought that you would get some merchants like either right before or during, and like you don't. Like, and the crazy thing is they give you so much money for beating all, like for doing the end game, for beating all these enemies at the end of the game. There's no merchants to spend any of that fucking money on. So I'm just sitting there with like 100,000 lucre. I can't do jack shit with it. Yeah. And I'm at the mana tree. I'm at the final boss, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There's got to be a merchant here. There wasn't.
You are able to fly away and go on the world map, and then go wherever, and then go back.
Oh, fuck me! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. How did you figure that out? Did you just try it?
Yeah. I was okay, because I got the warning and I said no, and I wanted to just make sure I have everything ready to go.
Fuck. All right. Well, whatever. It's fine. I beat him first try. Easy. But
actually I won't talk about it because it's kind of a spoiler for the ending.
Right? Yeah.
I wasn't the biggest fan of where the story went, but I said that in the beginning that like the story is not bad or anything. It's just very standard JRPG story. Very surface level, like it's just what I expect. Very predictable.
I really thought that the game had some really good themes towards the first half, and then it just drops it on its head for a banal revenge scheme that is poorly explained. Yeah. I would have liked it better if the game had if you went to the light and dark dungeons and then went to the mana tree and then faced the original antagonist. Like this game, it took me about 25 hours. I skipped most of the side quests. It should have taken me 20. Like, if it had been 5 hours less, I think, and they hadn't switched off the protagonist or the antagonist, I would have been so, like, I would have thought this was excellent. This would probably make my top 5.
Yeah, there was no way this game was going to be my top 5, but definitely a top 10 game. And I think overall, I just love the story. I love the gameplay and the visuals enough where the story didn't have to be great. The characters were all likable enough, I think, so that made up for the lack of fantastic storytelling. But I would say near the end, it had genuinely great moments, like when interacting with like the village members.
Yes.
That's all I'll say.
I was just about to say Val has this incredible this is like easily the best written, best voice acted scene. Not that it's bad otherwise, but it's just like levels above. But there's a scene where Val interacts with some of the village members of the village or that he's from. I won't say who because it's a spoiler, but it's a really powerful scene. And it subverts what I think Val wanted and what maybe some people would think too. I think it's really done well. One thing that isn't done well writing wise is Val's interactions with the final boss is really frustrating to me because the final boss is basically saying this world sucks. The way that this world runs sucks. People are dying for no fucking reason. Like they're dying every 4 years, but it doesn't do anything. And it's and then Val's like, but they have a choice. Like, really, the goddess gave us I'm like, no, bro, that's no choice. Like, either you sacrifice your loved ones or yourself, or your homeland gets destroyed. That's not a choice. What kind of choice is that? That's like handing somebody a water bottle in the desert and being like, well, you can either drink this or you could fucking die. And it's like, that's not a choice. That's not how choice works. And I'm like, I shouldn't be like going like, yeah, when the villain is talking. I shouldn't be doing that, right? Like there's to some extent, I don't mind if you have a villain like Mr. Freeze or Azuko or whatever, who I sympathize with, empathize with, understand, can get where they're coming from. But I shouldn't be going like, oh, that's a good point, actually. And then the protagonist speaks, and I'm like, "You're a dumbass, actually. This world is fucked." But yeah, so it's not a big deal, but it did kind of take me out of the experience. It was very close to a 4.5 out of 5 for me. I feel like if it had been 5 hours shorter and they hadn't switched out the antagonist, I would have been happier with it overall. But it is still a big recommendation for me, for any RPG fan. I was able to finish it in 25 hours. I recommend just skipping the side quests. They get really repetitive. I never found like the rewards were super worth it, in my opinion. I didn't mess around with the class system too much. I know there's a lot that you can do with that, but I was pretty happy with the defaults. I will talk about this. There is a tacked on extra episode. Seb, did you see this?
No,
okay.
I didn't see it.
Okay. No, did you see like the extra episode? Like, did you do anything with it, or did you like? You get it for beating the game?
Yeah, I didn't bother. I moved on to the next.
Okay. One. Yeah. So that's what I just was curious what it was, and so what it ends up being, and I didn't play it for more than 5 minutes, by the way. So I'm not gonna I'm not saying I played it because God no, but like it introduces a brand new villain out of nowhere from. I don't even know where, a dragon that you have to slay to crown a new king out of complete left field, who is supposed to be as strong, or if not stronger, than the main villain of the game. It just completely comes out of nowhere. I don't care about the prince is like 14 or 12 or some shit. He shouldn't be leading a country or a city or whatever. What the fuck? So
it doesn't work that way in real life.
What's that? Yeah, no, I know, but I'm not fucking helping that happen in where I can actually affect change. Seb, come on.
Yeah.
It's guillotines. No, I'm kidding.
What is this, France?
But seriously, like it was stupid. And I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So overall, really great game. Had some story weaknesses that I didn't care for. But I really like the combat. I really like the characters. Really like a lot of the dialogue and the graphics. So it more than balanced out. I think it's a really great game. Just ignore the side quests. I think the pacing is just really bad towards the second half. I can excuse the Benevodons, but there's some extra padding before you get to the final boss, and that's where I hit my limit. I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like you're just clearly like padding this out so this can be a longer game.
Yeah, that part, that whole section, even with the 4 or 5 bosses, like it just felt like tacked on.
It just felt, yeah, and and the villain felt like from just a generic JRPG. So yeah, some parts of it are not great, but overall, it is a really fun game to play, and I do recommend it.
It's a good 8 out of 10 game for me. All right, is that everything before I move on? All right, so let's talk about some Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which we've been hyped for all year long. Dory hasn't played it yet, I believe, but
yes, I have not, because I'm playing Silent Hill 2.
All right, so Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is a very good game. It lives up to the hype. It's not perfect, and it definitely has issues, but overall, it's a very good game. So let's start with the pros. Well, first of all, it has a huge roster, as you would expect from a Tenkaichi game. It has like pretty much every major Dragon Ball character you can think of, from all the way from Dragon Ball to GT to Super to even Daima. But although it does lack Dragon Ball characters, like original Dragon Ball characters, like there's no General Tao, there's no like Aider or
that is shameful,
anything like that. But most people, I guess, started with Dragon Ball Z, so I don't think a lot of people are going to be upset about that. But the roster is a strength. The roster is really good, but it does have some issues with that, because obviously when you have that many characters, you can only balance it so much, and this game is quite unbalanced at times. First of all, there's characters that have similar movesets like too much, where it's like they're just playing the same character, just different skin. And then the second thing is it's very unbalanced, especially online. If you play online, you're only going to be fighting Gogeta and Vegetos because they're so broken. And I guess they don't really care. Bandai Namco doesn't really care. But that's been a common criticism of this game is that people are just using like the fusions and just using the same kind of character. And yes, every person I fought online, I haven't played that online a lot, but the people I have played, it's all been Vegito, Gogeta, and Ultra Instinct Goku, as you would expect, because those are the most popular characters, I suppose, for the casual audience. No one's playing as Frieza Soldier, right? Or Jace, or you know what I mean? No, I like me personally. I like to play as obscure characters. I'm very good with Birder. Like I don't like to play as just like the typical Saiyans because everybody just picks the Saiyans and it's like it's kind of lame. Everybody's just picking the same character.
I love when people go online and post pictures of Kaba, and he's just beating the shit out of SSJ4 Gogeta. It's just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do want to say this game was never. None of the Budokai games were balanced. This is not fighters. This is not supposed to be balanced.
Yeah.
You know, I understand it sucks for player diversity, but this is not a serious fighting game. This is I want to have fun, kick my friend's ass, and yell really loud like Goku does.
Yes, that's
fighting game.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that's the difference between this game and Fighters. I think Fighters is going to have longer legs because it's very hardcore in the fighting scene. It's an Evo and things like that. This game is not that. This game is very much so more of a party casual game where you play with your friends and you want to play online if you want to, but it's not a big deal. There is ranked, but you don't have to. And you just play with your friends, and if you want to like have little kid Goku fight Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and get their ass kicked, unless there's a huge difference in skill level, but it is broken. So just don't go in this game online expecting this game to be like Fighters where it's balanced and it's meant to be like a hardcore
I will say
Evo.
that there is a really cool mechanic that is like called destruction points or something like that.
Yeah.
Where the more powerful characters you pick, the less points you have to work with.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those memes where
That's
it's
true.
like you have like $20 to pick a fighter from Dragon Ball Z, and like, you know, Goku Super Saiyan 4, it's like $15, and Yamcha's worth 1, and you know, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so overall, just don't expect this game to be this is very much a casual, have fun with your friends kind of game. This is not ranked. I don't think it's gonna have as long legs as Fighters does. Also, I think 2D fighters like Street Fighter kind of thing has more of a scene with fighting community than 3D games like this. But so you can look at it as a negative. I'm just saying, like, just expect when you play this game online, you're gonna be fighting the same 3 characters over and over again. You're not gonna be. No one's gonna be playing as random characters. All right. The combat overall is very smooth and responsive. It doesn't really play well on the Steam Deck, so I wouldn't recommend it playing on there. You have to mess with settings, and I just don't like the way it looks. But playing on the go is cool. But on my computer though, it is flawless. The frame rate is great. I don't have any issues. On my laptop, great, no issues. So it plays really well. It's smooth. The animation, the particle effects are awesome. The presentation of this game is fantastic. Everything looks fantastic. They captured the games very well. The animation's really crisp. It's pretty much one for one shot from the show. So if you know Dragon Ball like I do, like you'll recognize pretty much everything where it's from, what it's referencing. Dragon Ball is my favorite franchise, and yeah, it's very satisfying as a fan. It has multiple game modes. It has a battle mode. It has which is like one-on-one, and then you have like large team battles, and you have a tournament mode, which you would expect in a Dragon Ball game. Pretty much all of them have a tournament mode. And then there's progression and customization. So everything you do earns you money, Zenny, and you unlock characters and outfits and bonuses without like any monetization. So you don't have to, there's no DLC you have to buy. There is a season pass you can buy for the future, but you don't have to buy that until when it comes out. But you don't need any of that for progression. And then of course there's online play, which is there's ranked and stuff. The online connection's been a little mixed because I had early access, so obviously early access is a little janky, but overall it's fine, smooth. But again, the fighting game strongly depends if you have Ethernet cable or not. I don't play online fighting games on Wi-Fi. You're just asking for trouble. You're just gonna get your butt kicked because fighting games are timing is so important. and if you make a mistake, you get your ass kicked. So it's very important that you have a great frame rate. Now, there's also cool story mode. There's I really like the world map. It's not perfect, but I do like the scenarios. Like it comes up with really creative ideas. If you're a big Dragon Ball fan, like what if Vegeta actually killed Cell? Like Vegeta allowed Cell to become perfect.
Bro would never have shut the fuck up about it. He
Yeah,
would
well,
never have stopped
in the
talking.
game he gets to beat him and he gets to brag about it and that kind of stuff. It has
God.
allows a lot of cool moments. Like what if Vegeta teamed up with Goku to fight Frieza, and then they had Frieza come to Earth, and Goku and Vegeta basically jump, or it has like Goku and Vegeta. Goku fights like Great Ape Vegeta, and Goku turns Super Saiyan, and then like Vegeta gets his butt kicked, and then he comes back later and he's Super Saiyan, but he's wearing like the Saiyan armor from the Saiyan saga, and he's like Super Saiyan.
Wow.
It's that kind of stuff. It's like fan fiction, but it's fun.
Right.
There's another big one I don't want to say because it'd be a big spoiler, but there was things online that people were intentionally spoiling, which sucks. But there's things like that. There's like I would say every level or so, there's like a side objective where like if you beat the enemy fast, it will unlock the alternative route. And the alternative route is always something like, what if this happened? What if this character beat this character? It's usually it revolves around, what if so-and-so character beat them at this moment? Like, for an example, do you remember the Cell Saga when Gohan and Goku were like up in the sky and Semi-Perfect Cell was chasing the androids, and then Gohan wanted to go save Piccolo, and Goku said no? Well, there's a scenario where Goku actually goes there, and then he beats him. I'm like, why didn't Goku just beat him in the first place? Why didn't they just jump Cell at the time? Or there's even one where like the Kid Buu saga, where like Goku and Vegeta just double team him, and Goku's Super Saiyan 3 and Vegeta's Super Saiyan 2, and they beat Kid Buu without the Spirit Bomb. I'm like, why they could have just did that the whole time. But things like that. It's really, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, I think you'll like that mode really well, and it's a good way to practice as well. Now, I do have cons with this game. I talked about one of them already, which is like people just picking the same characters online, but that's not a big deal to me because obviously this is more of a local play with your friend kind of game. But the first thing is the navigation of the menu. The menu is kind of like because it's like in real time. It stutters sometimes when you go left and right. It's a small nitpick, but my biggest issue is the fighting mechanics. There's a steep learning curve, and the pairing is not responsive that like it was in the past. I feel like I just can't get the timing right, and you just get comboed in the back. Like for whatever reason, especially the computer, they know to like keep punching you in the back, and you have no way of getting around it. Like there is ways to get out of it, but it just doesn't respond right well. So all of a sudden the computer can just like take 2 bars from you doing one combo, and it's like I just can't do anything to stop it. And I know I'm timing it right, and I just can't seem to get it right. I know people have said the same thing. There's a big learning curve in this game. Like the people that are gonna be really good at this game are gonna be really good, and the people that are not are gonna really suck. And like that's why if you play online, you're probably gonna get your ass kicked because it's a very difficult game in that regard. But that's like every fighting game, I suppose. But like I just wish it was a little more responsive. The way like you just get comboed and you're very powerless at times. I know people are gonna say, "Oh, that's a skill issue or whatever," but that's like I've seen it's a common criticism I've seen in this game. And then, even though I did mention how cool the what if scenarios are, which they call sparking episodes, there's still it's still not a lot of depth to it. It's still largely the same storyline you've done before. You know what I mean? Like I'm just spamming the X button through the dialogue. I don't give a shit. Like I already know the story. The only thing I didn't skip was the what if stuff because like obviously it's new stuff, but I don't give a shit about fighting Frieza as Trunks or like Gohan fighting Cell. Like it's the same shit I've been doing since Budokai 1. I don't care. So like just don't expect anything monumental game changing. Like that's one of the reasons why I really liked Xenoverse because it did its own storyline and it was unique and different. It wasn't just like, oh, we're gonna fight Frieza on Namek as Super Saiyan Goku for the 1 trillionth time. So just don't expect anything different from that. And I talked about the character balancing already. So yeah, those are like my main issues. So to sum everything up, it's a really good game. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, 100% get this. It has great animation, great gameplay overall. There's some balancing issues, and it can be really annoying to get. There's a steep learning curve. You really have to practice to get better at this game. But if you don't care about that, you just want to play this casual with your friends or whatever, then yeah, you don't have no issues with that. It does a great job capturing moments from the series. Like every special move is well crafted, and they have every character feels unique in their own finisher. There is some repetitive with basic moves, like a lot of characters have the volley move, where they just spam beams or whatever.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
That was always an issue in the Budokai games.
Yeah, that's always been an issue. So, basically, the best way I could sum this game up is like it's a modern version of Tenkaichi. So, for all its pros and cons of those games, it's pretty much here as well. The only exception now is that we have online better now than we did back then in the PS2 era.
17 years ago.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Like, I really recommend it. I don't think it's as bad as IGN says it is. It's a very strong 8 out of 10 for me, which I think
crazy. They gave it a 7.
Yeah, they give everything a 7. I feel like.
Well, they do, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but we talked. That's another conversation. But anyway.
Yeah.
But it's an 8 out of 10 for me. I think I could be like 8.5 maybe because I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. It'll probably be my top 10. It'll probably be one of my most played games of the year. I really have a blast playing it. Even if you don't only play it for like 20 minutes, it's just fun playing different characters and experimenting what works, what you like, and things like that. It's a huge roster, so you can have fun with it. So I know I'm saying negatives, but it's not like ruining the game for me or anything. I'm just saying don't expect like a hardcore balanced online game that's gonna have long legs like Fighters is. It's not gonna be a big Evo game. This is very much a party game. Your friends are over your house. You pull out your PS5 or your PC, and you play this game with your friends. It's a casual game is what I'm saying. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, so that's that. So let's talk about some Silent Hill 2 now.
Yeah.
All right, so I've been talking enough. So I'm curious about your first impressions from Silent Hill 2, and then I'll go into detail since I beat it and know Silent Hill 2 like the back of my hand.
Yeah. So I'm a newbie. Hello, my name is Dory, and I've never played a Silent Hill game before, unless we count PT. But I don't really know if we count that.
You do,
because it was. I mean, it is a Silent Hill game, but it's
not
was
a game. I guess it's a demo. Yeah,
it's a demo, right? But whatever. However you want to count it, I've never played any of the original Silent Hill games. Never played any of them. I didn't grow up playing them. I didn't want to play them necessarily, just because I was a big Resident Evil person. I just never got into it. I didn't have anything against it, but I just never played it.
Yeah.
So take everything I'm saying with a big grain of salt, especially if you're like a series veteran like Seb. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Half the time. I mean, obviously through cultural osmosis, I picked up certain things, right? Everybody knows about the dog UFO ending. Come on.
Yeah.
So I know some vague spoilery things. I know James isn't quite the nice divorced husband energy guy he's trying to give off here. I know he's in Silent Hill for a reason.
Yeah.
I know some of the other people are in Silent Hill for certain reasons that I've been spoiled on. But that's not a big deal to me because I don't know all the ins and outs. And of course, I've never seen the scenes before. I've never seen how they're written. So it's kind of like knowing like certain stuff from like movies, but like you haven't seen the scenes themselves. So it's like it could still be really impactful.
It's always like it's like one of those things where like everybody recommends something like Godfather Part 2 or like Citizen Kane, and then you watch it, and it's like I don't understand why it's so popular. Or I don't understand because like it's one of those things like you have to be at the time. I guess I don't know. Like I still think this game is fantastic, and I'll praise the hell out of it. But it's one of those things where like Silent Hill 2 is one of those games that everybody praises all the time, and it's like I'm always curious how like someone interprets it like their first time, because it's like you hear how good it is all the time. Does it actually live up to that expectation?
I don't know. but I do like it a lot, and I told you that already. So like, don't worry for some like shoe dropping. Like, oh, this is bad. Actually, no, it's not. It's a fucking awesome game.
Yeah.
I first off, governments have been reading up on this fucking game for years now because this is one of the most oppressive games I've ever played in my goddamn life. Like, the fog is everywhere, the monsters are everywhere. James can't fucking hit the side of a goddamn barn with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Like, it's an oppressive environment, and I say that in a good way for once. Like, it is done so well. You really feel like you're Spider-Man. No, you really feel like you're fucked. I mean, honestly, I walk into Silent Hill and I'm like, fuck, I gotta turn around. Like she ain't worth this. She is not worth this. I gotta go.
That's the one of the cool things about Silent Hill is like Resident Evil. Everybody's a trained mercenary, trained soldier, trained police officer.
Yes.
In Silent Hill, all the protagonists are just regular people that have like zero skill. It's like Ethan, I guess. Even Ethan had training in Resident Evil 7. So
right.
So James is very clumsy. All he uses is a crowbar and he uses a piece of wood, a plank to fight. So it is clunky. But
it's I think it's clunky in a charming kind of like realistic way. I think they've hit that balance where yes, it's clunky, but I feel like most of my hits are earned, or most of my misses are earned, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say that like the gun combat's kind of unsatisfying, that like it doesn't feel like it hits with as much recoil or something. I haven't had any problems with the gun combat.
Feels fine. I have zero issues.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with that. I love the shotgun. I love the pistol. Now there are times where I'm just fucking zip zooming around and I can't get a straight shot, but that's just because I'm freaking out. / I'm a very brave person actually, and I have great aim. Don't at me. In terms of the scariness factor, I will talk about that. I don't know if I'm scared necessarily, but what I do know is that if somebody taps my shoulder while I'm playing this game, I might let out a yelp and put a new hole in my ceiling. So I'm definitely very tense. Tense and anxious are definitely the words I would use for this game. I'm very tense. I'm very anxious. Yeah. If something pops out, I go, oh shit. Like, so I don't know that I'm scared, but like, I'm certainly not terrified or anything, but like, I am very like affected by the game and what it's trying to do. So I call that a win for Silent Hill 2.
Yeah,
it's rhyme, so it's got to be true.
This is where Silent Hill shines the most, is the psychological horror. And the psychological horror is the atmosphere, the oppressive atmosphere where you're constantly on edge. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what sound is coming from where. You don't know what it is, and they never explain it. And that's
right. Yeah. And go ahead. There's great like it's the way that it works in the game is you'll hear the enemies, but there's no clear direction of where the fuck they're coming from.
Yeah, you have the radio.
And like the radio does help a little bit too, but also like that, I noticed too, and we talked about this last night, that the radio, the sounds that the enemies make, I don't know if there's a technical term in the Silent Hill lore for them, but the sounds that they make sound a lot like the clickers. So obviously Silent Hill 2 ripped off The Last of Us, right? No, obviously it's the reverse, and The Last of Us just used, not just used, but like obviously they took some inspiration from the way these enemies sound through the radio, which I think is cool. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a cool thing that I've never heard anybody talk about, and that surprises me because Silent Hill 2, like you said, is like one of the most influential horror games. So when I made that realization, I'm like, why the fuck have I never heard anybody talk about this?
Yeah, it might just be a coincidence, honestly, but
it could be. It could be. I mean, there's only so many fucking horrifying sounds that can come out of things' mouths, right?
I'm sure somebody was inspired in Naughty Dog from this game.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like people say it's the scariest game of all time. That's what
I think this is so far. I'm either on a really great or an excellent on a scale of 5. I do think it's a very, very good game. I do have some criticisms. I'm sure they're going to line up with some of yours as well. The game is a little too proud of itself in terms of its puzzles. Sometimes I feel like I get the point and I know what's going on, and I don't need to be here any longer. Well, and also I'm running for my life, but that's totally another situation. But it does get frustrating when you've been, not hugely, right? It doesn't bring down my enjoyment a lot, but it is notable when I'm on the same puzzle for like an hour, and because not in terms of figuring it out, but like getting the requisite parts that are in the physical environment. If it's a lock pad or it's a combination or whatever, then I'll just look it up, because to be honest with you, I don't play horror games for puzzles. I don't mind them sporadically, but Silent Hill has a lot of them, and it loves combinations. It also loves, I forgot to put this in my notes, it also loves, and this is going to sound very bad out of context, nobody take this out of context, James puts his hand in so many fucking disgusting holes throughout just the first 6 hours of this game. Somebody on the develop team had a fucking fetish, and I will not back down for this stance. There's no way that they did this so many times.
There's a lot of sexual themes in this game, so it lines
well,
up.
Yes, of course, but it is, yeah. So maybe it is very explicit, but it is, yeah. I mean, the first time you see Pyramid Head, he is doing some very bad things to one of the nurse characters, or one of the doll care. I don't know how you describe them, but yeah, it's really bad.
Yep.
So yeah, obviously that's intentional too. I picked up on that.
Yep. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So let me make sure. I'm gonna look at my notes actually. I will say that the music is great. Visuals look very nice. I have had some issues with Maria's hair, kind of wigging out, pun intended. And sometimes her hair will just kind of go out, and I'm like, girl, like, what is wrong with your hair? But generally speaking, the models look good. The voice acting is great. The writing is great. I like Eddie, and Angela is an interesting, tragic character. Everybody being a fucking weirdo on Twitter can leave her the fuck alone, by the way. I find the map pretty helpful. I will say that sometimes, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Seb, sometimes I wish this game was a little bit more like RE2 Make, where they would cross off the room. They do this to a limited extent, but it's usually only if you've got like key items, or you've got like really important story items, not if you've gotten every item in the room. Because sometimes I'll come back to a room and I'll be like, oh, how the fuck did I miss that?
Yeah.
And because so the map doesn't really work like that. It does sometimes. It's very selective.
I think,
but yeah,
I can understand like having an issue like not being able to get any room, everything. Like there's a lot of locked doors mostly. But I really like the map in this game. And I really like the map in the original game, where it's very easy to understand. Everything's like very left, right, straight, down. It's nothing like, there's no, so other games will have like 5 levels, and it's very confusing where to go, and there's always obscure side areas. Everything in this game is very much so a real map.
Yes.
Straight up, left, right. So I think the map is great in this game.
I also think the map is great. There's some little tweaks that I would make based on what RE2 Make did. And RE3, I'm pretty sure, and RE4 did the same thing, I think.
3 didn't even need a map. That was so linear.
Right. 3 didn't even need a map. Straight. But anyway, right. Yeah, walk straight and walk right into Nemesis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The map is generally pretty good.
Yeah.
I've already talked about the combat. I already talked about being scared, / not being scared because I'm brave. I haven't found the game. I did see this in your notes, and I just wanted to slightly respond to it. I haven't found the game too easy. I'm on normal, and I haven't found like a rhythm for all enemies. Now, sometimes with certain enemies, I can get away with a hit, dodge, then a hit, and they're dead. But I don't know. With the nurses, I never really figured it out, although I never really tried because they hit like a truck. Yeah, keep a distance with that. I have to use pistol. Like, with pistols, I have a philosophy of like, if I have 10 bullets left, I'm going to try to keep it there. But they've made me break my rule because they hit so hard, they hit fast. I always go for the shotgun. I always use my shotgun on the nurses. 1 hit, 1 kill, like, get them out of the way. Because, like, I think the first time I tried to fight the nurses, they I tried to get in a crowbar fight with them, and I instantly was like, oh no, I'm filled with regret. Like, this was a bad idea. I didn't die, but like, and the game gives you a lot of health stuff. It all stacks.
A lot of ammo.
I
too.
think I have like 7 nutrition drinks and 2 syringes or some shit at this point.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Unless you're playing on hard difficulty, but you don't
Right.
have
But
to.
fuck that.
You don't have
Yeah,
to.
fuck that. But yeah, that's most of my thoughts so far. I'm only 6 hours in. I really thought I'd be done by now, but I was pretty tired one night, and Seb was finishing it up, so I didn't get to play. But and even if I had, I still wouldn't have been able to beat it.
No, it's a long game. It's less longer than Resident Evil 4 remake, I think. Yeah. So is that everything for you?
Yeah, that's most of my thoughts.
All right. So to start off with, Silent Hill 2 is my top 6 favorite game of all time. I love Silent Hill 2. I think it's the greatest horror game ever made. I think the storyline is arguably one of the best storylines ever in a game. Like, it's a masterpiece. The writing, the characters, and this game improves on. How much they improve? It does like its own take. It's like it's very accurate to the original, like very accurate. But it does change some things, like handle the way they deliver the lines, the character faces, some of like the cinematography or whatever. But it's pretty much the same storyline. So I don't want to say this is the definitive version of Silent Hill 2, but for like the general audience that you're introducing Silent Hill 2, then yeah, this is the Silent Hill 2 that most people are gonna play. And so this is the definitive version. And yes, the storyline is a masterpiece. The best part of this game is the storyline. Storyline is still one of the best ever. It handles sexual abuse. It handles bullying. It handles depression. It handles suicidal thoughts. All the dark things you can think of.
Oh yeah, I do want to say on that topic, like it's not funny, but like it is kind of funny when you start up the game and Konami's like, hey, here's all the fucked up stuff in this game, so like, I don't know, strap in or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so how Silent Hill is you play as James Sunderland, and his wife Mary has apparently died 3 years ago, and we got a letter from her, so he goes to Silent Hill to investigate, why am I getting this letter from her? And he goes into town. First of all, I love that they kept the wood section in the beginning of the game. It's very symbolic, first of all, because you walk into the woods and you're completely alone with a bunch of sound effects around you, great atmosphere, the mist. There's obviously symbolism there about him being alone and going deep into darkness and deep into his subconscious, you can say. This whole game is about holes and jumping into deeper levels of your mind and things like that. So this game is always about going deeper and deeper and deeper. You'll see that as you move along in the game. It's always about jumping down a hole or something. And the more you do that, the more you get to the truth. I won't say what the truth is, of course. That's a massive spoiler, but we'll talk about that in another video. But so James goes into Silent Hill and he encounters basically 3 enemies. Like this, that's one criticism I have of this game, which I also have in the original. Same enemies, 3 over and over and over and over and over again. All you do is fight lying figure. You fight the pair of legs. You fight the nurses, and then you fight one more enemy, and then that's it. And then you get Pyramid Head. So the enemy variety is the same thing over and over. Every room has the same type of enemy over and over again. Basically, you have the lying figure. They'll either be walking around or they be crawling on the floor like a roach, which always gets me. like out of nowhere, they make that noise and they kept it in there. Then you have the pair of legs are the ones that always get me because they hide behind the wall in any room. They're always always in a
fucking mannequins, bro. Those fucking mannequins.
The pair of leg mannequins, yeah. And did you notice that all the monsters were female? Have you picked up on that or not yet?
Did I pick up on what? I'm sorry.
Every enemy is female.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, every enemy. So there's not a spoiler, but just if people have noticed that there's a reason why every monster in this game is feminine except for Pyramid Head. That's all I'll say about that. So the lying figures have high heels on the bottom. It's hard to tell because when you're fighting them and everything, but they're actually they walk a certain way because they're in heels. And then obviously the mannequins are a pair of legs, and then the nurses obviously are sex symbols for Silent Hill. So very iconic monster. Pyramid's the most iconic, but Nurses are the second. Anyway.
Yeah, as soon as I saw Pyramid Head, I was really hoping that they were pushing him towards the second half or something. I wouldn't see his fucking triangle head ass, having a head ass. I butchered that, but yeah, I was really hoping, but no. I think you see him in the first 2 hours, 3 hours. You see him really early on.
Yeah, you see him in the apartment. You see him first in the apartment with the red.
Yeah. Yes, and then and then the boss fight, which I was able to do on my first try, but I did it literally. It was so funny. I was telling Kim, I was like, "Oh yeah, I beat him," and she's like, "Yeah, how did it go?" I was like, "Well, I was bloodied in the corner with 0 bullets to my name." And fucking Pyramid Head heard a noise and walked away and said, "GG, bro. Let's call it a draw." And I'm like in the corner, like all fucked up, like no bullets, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. You better run." It's like
they did a good job modernizing that boss battle. Like I think they did a good job modernizing all the boss battles because like in the original game, it's literally just you walk in the room and the monster walks at you and you just shoot them and then they walk away. Or they die. That's the Pyramid Head fight in the original is literally you're on the staircase and he just walks towards you very slowly and you shoot him and then eventually he walks away. He says, "I'm done." He walks away.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm out."
But I do like the little Easter egg thing that they kept in there. Like if you try to attack him while he's walking away, he swings at you. So they keep that part in there. Anyway, so James goes into town, fights a bunch of monsters, and he meets a bunch of characters. And first of all, Angela, very tough character. Obviously she's been through stuff. I don't know what I can say that's a spoiler for you, so I don't know how much you know about Angela. So Dory, what do you know about Angela from your understanding?
So I know that Twitter fucking weirdos were making fun of her while she was having a breakdown because she quote unquote looked like a man or some bullshit.
Yeah, in the trailer like a couple months ago, they made her chubbier than she is in the real game. And people were like making fun of her about that, but they fixed it.
Fucking.
But I don't. But
yeah,
it was.
But like, who fucking like? It's so terrible to me because of who Angela is. I know about like her. I know vaguely about her past.
Okay.
And I know what's going on with her in a general sense.
All right. So I won't say.
I thought the scene with her with the mirror was fucking haunting. In like every
iconic
possible way. Yeah. I meant to take a fucking screenshot, but I missed it at the last second. But I think she's an incredibly compelling character. I'm very interested to see what'll happen.
So you have Angela, of course. We get more deeper into it after Dory beats it and we go have a spoiler cast or whatever. But then we have Eddie. Eddie is an overweight guy who's bullied by people and runs into the town. And the first scene we see him thrown up, just like the original.
Bro, he's even bullied by fucking Laura. She calls him a fatso in the movie theater, and I'm like, that is so fucked up if you know like what Eddie is going through right now.
Yeah. And then you have Laura, who's a little girl who doesn't see any of the monsters because she's innocent, so she has no psychological issues or anything. So she can just wander around and carefree and not have to deal with anything. So that's why that's Laura's character. Each character symbolically represents something for James that I can't talk about yet, but we'll talk about in the future. But they all serve a purpose. Like what they're basically what they are paths that James can go down if he doesn't remedy his current issue. If that makes sense. So something happens to each character eventually, which we'll talk about after Dory beats it. So anyway, you have Eddie, Angela, and Laura. Those are like the 3 characters with James, and then finally you have Maria. Basically Maria, who looks like Mary. She's a more sexy version on purpose.
Yeah,
and
she's very, very sexual character.
She's very flirty. She's more flirty in the original. I think a lot of people have biggest criticism I've seen.
Is she really?
Yeah, she looks like, for example, when you go in the hotel room and she pulls out like an outfit, like that was her original outfit in the original game. And
so it's a nice little Easter egg.
She's a little more flirty in the original, but no, I'm not saying she's like super sexual in the first. I'm just saying like, they toned her down.
Surprising because I already think she comes on really strong.
No, she does.
In this game.
She does. but they toned her down a bit. Her outfit's different. Like she's covered, like her boobs are covered more. Like she's wearing more of like an
Her
outfit.
boobs are covered more.
Yeah.
That is impressive because her boobs aren't covered much.
No, not in the original. The original is like there's nothing. You can tell it's more modern.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Maria serves a purpose as well, which we'll talk about later. I can't talk about anything without spoiling, but I think she's a good. I think all the voice acting and the acting is fantastic. I think they did a fantastic job with the dialogue. I know people really like the original's dialogue and they love like how it's not great, but it's on like, but it feels perfect for the theme of the game. It feels outwardly the way people talk, that it fits the tone of the game. But like this game is more modernized, where it's like it's more emotional and it feels like real Hollywood acting. And I think I like both. So I don't view it as like one's better than the other. I view it as like equal, and I like it for different reasons. But I think this game is one of those games where it's like if you're a purist, you're gonna hate this because you're nitpicking everything they changed. But if you're not like that, then you're gonna love it. The performance in this game are top notch from top to bottom. Like I feel like this is one of the best acted games. I think the actor for James could easily win a Keeley.
He's really good.
Keeley Award.
Like he sounds fucking tired. Yeah. Like that man perfect. Has been divorced more than once.
Yeah, James is only 29 and he looks like he's 40 something.
I thought, wait, he's only 29?
Yeah.
I thought he was in his
same thing with Angela.
Least his mid to late 30s.
Same thing with Angela. Angela's only 19, but she looks like she's 40 something.
Oh God, she's only 19? Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did
not know that either.
She looks and sounds older even in the original even more.
Yeah, she does. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's played by an Australian lady originally. And so sometimes her accent kicks in the voice, in the lines. So it sounds like all of a sudden she has an Australian accent. Not in this case. Anyway, so the acting. So let me just speed this up a little bit. So the visuals in this game are awesome. It just one of the best looking games of the year for sure. The lighting, fantastic. The fog, they did an amazing job with the fog. Obviously, back in the day, the fog was to hide the issues with PS2. Their vision couldn't be fully captured on PS2, so they had to hide a lot of things. This game, if people have taken the fog off with mods, the game looks gorgeous with or without the fog, but the fog really adds to it because obviously you can't see the monsters in the distance.
Did you see the fucking Unsilent Your Hills mod where they just made Silent Hill just completely bright and cheery and the sun is out?
That's what I just said.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but it looks gorgeous. Like it looks really, really
good.
Yeah,
it does look incredible. I was very surprised how good it looked.
Yeah, and then you have the soundtrack is again one of the best soundtracks of all time. It's iconic. Everybody loves Silent Hill 2 soundtrack. It's one of those iconic video game soundtracks.
It's very good.
Same composer, legend. He's done all the original Silent Hill games. He's a master of horror, but not just the sounds. Not just the music. I mean, he does the sound effects, and he really knows how to. He comes up with so creative ways to scare people, like with the sound. Like he just knows when to build the tension. It's like, and he knows when to have a melancholy scene. He knows when to have an emotional scene. He knows when to have a scary scene. Just one of the greatest composers of all time in gaming. The puzzles. It's a survival horror game, so you expect puzzles are the main focus. Sure, it's repetitive. Every level you go to has like a device that's covered in a cloth, and you pull the cloth off, and you have to solve the puzzle. Every single area does that, and and basically every level, the apartment, the hospital, things like that, are focused on you finding items to solve puzzle, get the item, go to the next location. I don't think it's a negative, but it's there. The puzzles I think they're fine. They're not great. They're just like number puzzles. Like, oh, remember the code. Oh, the code's on the wall, hidden in whatever, and you have to solve it. Sometimes I look up a guide because I'm like Dory. I don't like puzzles, and I don't feel like spending an hour trying to solve it. So I just look it up. No, of course, this game has different levels of puzzles, like different.
But you can't change it when you're midway through, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, but there's no reason not to play on a lower difficulty on puzzles because there's no trophy for playing on high difficulty or anything like that. So if you don't really give a
Yeah.
shit, then you can just do
I
that.
just put it on, I just put it on normal. I should have put it on easy, although it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I've looked it up and like the differences are pretty minor.
yeah, they just changed the numbers around.
Yeah.
Uh,
They give you more hints. That's all.
yeah, combat wise, the game. I'm not saying this game is easy. It's just not. It's not like really hard either. Like I feel like I had so much ammo and so much health items, and I was barely getting hit. The only time I was getting hit is when like they surprised me out of nowhere, which happened quite often. I'll get hit in the back. It was like a really dark room, and I would just get smacked in the back by a mannequin. But for the most part, I feel like I always had an abundant amount of items, and I got really good at dodging and stuff.
Right now I have so much fucking nutrition bottles that I could open up my own goddamn vitamins shop.
Vitamin pharmacy.
Purposely, yeah, pharmacy. I'm opening up my own fucking CVS. Yeah, that and bullets seem plentiful as well. Though right now, because of the nurses, I'm pretty low on bullets. But I always seem to have enough.
That's only if you get rewarded for exploring. That's the big thing. Is like there's a lot of
and trust me, even though I'm skipping some puzzles, I mean I'm 6 hours in. I'm only just now leaving the hospital.
Yeah, that's the thing about this game is that you get rewarded for exploring. Like not every room is required for the move forward in the story. It's more about this room has handgun bullets and has a health item in the cabinet, and then there might be an enemy in there or whatever, and then you leave. Like this game is all about the exploration and not knowing what's around the corner, and that's what's scary.
Yeah. Oh, that's one thing I was gonna say too. Probably the last thing I'll say about the game. I don't mind the fact that I get lost in it because I do feel like exploration is a big part of the focus. So when I get turned around or I confusedly go back to a room, to me, that I know this feels like a cop out, but it feels like it accentuates the dreamlike like atmosphere of the game.
No, it does.
And I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. It would bother me in most games if I got turned around, went back to the same room, or got confused or whatever. But in this game, it doesn't really bother me. It feels like it's within the tone and setting of the game to be a little confused and being like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Yeah, you never really need to go back in the same room. The only time you need to go to the same room is when it's like a puzzle area. But other than that, like, you don't need like you get a key. It will say room 206. You just go to 206. It's not. This game is not hard. This game is it's difficult to get lost in this game fully. Like there's some parts that I had to figure out. I was like I didn't know where I was going, but like later on in the game, which you're not there yet. But other than that, I pretty much was fine with where I'm going. And I love that James marks down everything he picks up. He's like, oh, this room is here, so I'll circle on the map. So overall, I really like the map. Psychological horror, fantastic, one of the best ever. Again, they captured the spirit of the original perfectly. It's one of the scariest games. A lot of people are going to find this very scary. I'm a veteran with horror, so I'm not scared. I'm just more on the edge because I don't know what's attacking me. But even then, I'm so familiar with Silent Hill 2 that I'm not scared either. I'm not like, yes, they jumped at me and I didn't expect that. And so it was more about me being startled by enemies coming out of nowhere than anything else. I wasn't like intimidated by the music or this atmosphere because I'm so familiar with the game. But that's my pros. So overall, this is a fantastic game. I'm blown away. Bloober Team did a phenomenal job remaking this game. It's pretty much a 1-to-1 remake of the original, but with just different little cinematography moments, different acting. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same story, same sound, same music. That's done better, more modern. It's a different version of an already a masterpiece. So it's kind of like Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 4 Remake, where like both games are fantastic for different reasons, and I love them for different ways. It doesn't replace the original, but I think it lives up to the original. So that's that. But I do have cons. First of all, I think this game is very padded out at times, where it's like you could have cut this out a bit. There's especially later on in the game, Silent Hill 2 is way shorter. The original game is way shorter than this one. This game drags things out a little too much. There's times where like the one area is like they want you to go here to here to here to here, get this item, and it gets like so repetitive at times. And especially later on, it gets ridiculous. I was like, this section could have easily been cut out. You could have cut out like a couple hours of this. I'm not saying it's like 40-hour game or anything. It's still like a 15-hour game, so it's not like a long game, but
Yeah,
it could have easily been like 12 hours instead of
they could have
15.
definitely cut this down to 12 or even 10, I think. But
Yeah.
there's the original game was what, 8 to 10 hours?
Yeah, but even then, I could beat that game in 2 hours. It's like Resident Evil. It's meant to be played multiple times. So but although once you know where you're going, you could easily speedrun this game in 3 to 5 hours. I've seen people do multiple playthroughs already, and they're flying through it now. So your first
Yeah.
playthrough is always long, and then after that, you kind of know where you're going. You kind of just you can fly through it more. So biggest issue with this game is it's over padded for sure. Second biggest issue with this game is the combat. It's not bad or by any means, but it's definitely clunky. It's not Last of Us Part 2 really. It's not fluid. James, it's mostly just enemy shoots acid at you, you dodge it. They do like a little tackle attack. You dodge it. You stomp them on the ground. You get a couple weapons. You get a rifle, a shotgun, a handgun. You get a piece of wood, a plank, and then you get
And then you get a crowbar later on.
The steel pipe, yeah. So you're not like Resident Evil. You're not getting a grenade launcher. You're not getting rocket launchers. You're not a combat veteran. You're not doing suplex.
I wouldn't trust James with any of that.
Yeah, you're not suplexing the monsters. But
Damn.
it's fine. It's decent. It's not anything to write home about. It's not Resident Evil 4. You're not parrying a chainsaw. You're not doing roundhouse kicks. But it's fine. It serves its purpose. It's just not phenomenal. It's janky. There's times where it's just like janky, and this game has especially later on, it gets in the habit of just putting too many monsters in too many rooms, where it's like there's times where you have to fight like 5 enemies at the same time, and like in a small space sometimes, and it gets like and it's the same enemy over and over again. And there's another section that I didn't find, like they added on to this game that I didn't really care for, which I can't talk about because that'd be a spoiler. But we'll talk about that in the spoiler cast. But overall, I think the gameplay is decent. It's not the best, and but that's the same with the original. The original game is a masterpiece, but their gameplay is not. It does not age well at all. And that's like the two big ones, really. The other issues are more so if you're a purist and love the original game, is just that like there's subtle changes that people just don't like, but you're not gonna know unless you're a hardcore original fan. Like the way Eddie and Angela and Laura deliver their lines are gonna be different than the original, and some people really really like the changes, and some people really don't like the changes. But I want to conclude with this, that I do think there's an agenda against this game with certain people. A, with the Angela stuff. But B, the people that convinced themselves that Bloober Team is such a bad studio that they don't deserve to have this remake, and that anything they do is going to be garbage no matter what. And like they just can't accept that this game is a great score on Metacritic, and people overall universally like this game. Like I have not seen anyone say this game is trash. Like this game is pretty much well praised. I'm not saying it's going to be game of the year or anything, but I'm just saying it's very well praised. But yet people on Twitter just hate this game, and they're convincing you.
People on Twitter fucking hate everything nowadays.
That's true, but especially this game, it's like there's some agenda against this game about like.
And I get it. Like, I know that Bloober has messed up in the past, and they've got a rocky history in terms of having good games and then middling games. But I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. They did it. They got the homework, understood the assignment, and did it. And I'm not even a Silent Hill expert or anything like that, but I recognize that this is a great game, a really great game.
Yeah.
They've done the deal. Like, I know it sucks for the haters, but I mean, I was skeptical too, but they did it. So good for them.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a agenda in this game, but overall, this game is fantastic, and I think I'm glad to be wrong. I had skepticism about Bloober Team, but I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't pretend to like, I was right the whole time, or like I'll admit that I think I had good reason to be skeptical because I haven't been a big fan of their games, but I wasn't like rooting for this game to fail, and I think that's the difference than other people.
I'm glad that this game is phenomenal, and this is a top 3 game for me at the moment, and it's definitely gonna be top 5. It's Silent Hill 2, and it lives up to Resident Evil 4 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake. It's one of the greatest remakes of all time. This game is just a phenomenal horror game. It's it's I want to say it's the definitive Silent Hill 2, but like for like the majority of the audience, the casual fans, the people that are playing this for the first time, this is going to be their entry point to Silent Hill. I feel like it only gets better from here. I feel like Konami's going to start doing more Silent Hill games now. This game's going to be a success, and it's critically acclaimed. And I can see it even being nominated for Game of the Year. Not saying it'll win it, but I can see it being nominated. Silent Hill is finally coming back now. Like this is like Silent Hill is actually back, which is crazy to say. It's been 20 years since a mainline Silent Hill game that's actually been good since from the original Silent Hill team. I'm not counting Downpour or the other one. Those games are not good. So Homecoming. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. Silent Hill is one of those franchises that we've been suffering for 20 years as a fan. Like we've just gotten nothing. This is why I really like remakes, because now Konami can make more Silent Hill that's high quality, and you can introduce more characters and more storylines to new fans.
And
like we can see Harry and Heather and all those great characters that you wouldn't see.
And everybody look at the video right now. I was never going to play Silent Hill 2, the original. It was never happening. I don't care how much Mitch pleaded or you pleaded. It was never happening. I was never going to do it. But now I am playing Silent Hill 2. That would not have happened without this remake. I don't like the fixed camera stuff. I don't like the tank controls. It's a hassle to even play to begin with. It was never happening.
Yeah, the gameplay doesn't age well.
I can play it easy. Play it easily.
Yeah, exactly. So this remake is fantastic. This is one of those. This is like a game changer for the franchise. Like I said, it's not a popular franchise. It's well known, but it's not a popular franchise. And this is a really good chance for Konami to capitalize and give us more Silent Hill. And I really excited about that, because Silent Hill is my second favorite horror franchise after Resident Evil. I've always been a big Silent Hill fan. So yeah, it's just as scary as when I played it when I was 8 years old. So if I could play it at 8 years old, you can play it at an adult age. So anyway, that's my review of Silent Hill 2. Go play it if you like horror games. If you don't like horror games, then probably you're not gonna like it. But yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Next week we will talk about Dragon Ball in more detail, I suppose, because Dory will be playing it. I'm sure you're going to beat Silent Hill 2.
Yep.
And
I will beat Silent Hill. We will be talking about Dragon Ball Z and maybe Metaphor. I don't know. It depends on how much I can balance Metaphor and Dragon Ball Z.
I'll be playing Metaphor for sure. I've already been playing it, and so I'll go in more detail about that next week. Silent Hill 2, maybe we'll do a spoiler cast for a topic, and then so we'll give a spoiler warning for that. I'm sure by that point, 2 weeks in, a lot of people have already played it, and then you can always. That's why we do timestamps. You can just skip ahead. So
for sure,
we don't do it live. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy October. So many games.